next item is a presentation from the California Highway Patrol Commander Jerry Flavin regarding the every 15 minutes program. Mr. Haas, were you going to say a few words?
So I just wanted to invite Jerry up to fill us in on this. It's quite a program. It does bring young people to attention, I do believe, and we certainly see enough of it, and it's a shame when we lose a young person because of the way they care for their lives or not care for their lives at some times. You know, they just do crazy things, and hopefully this kind of education makes them think, doesn't it? I think it does, Jerry.
Yeah. You know, it would be easy to be cynical in law enforcement. We go to a lot of tragedies, and that's exactly what it is. And what we absolutely don't want is we don't need that kind of business. And this is one program that has been an absolute success. It costs the taxpayers very little money. If anything, it's personnel costs. And as I've said, it's been very, very successful, and it's a true partnership with the community.
Captain, if I could have you state your name for the audience, please.
I'm sorry. I'm Captain Jerry Flavin, California Highway Patrol in Redding. And the purpose of my presentation is that on May 16th and 17th, Bernie High School conducted a every 15 minutes program. And the every 15 minutes stands for someone in the United States is killed or seriously injured in an alcohol-related incident every 15 minutes, which is a staggering statistics. Bernie High School undertook it, and as I said, it's a true community partnership. It's not just the California Highway Patrol and the Bernie staff, Bernie High School staff. It are a lot of people, a lot of organizations got together, a lot of volunteers came in and provided their time. A lot of donations came forward and to pay for it, and it's just a remarkable program. And it was so remarkable that my first intent was to commend all the folks and organizations involved in it, but I thought, well, that's not enough. So I kind of pigeonholed Mr. Lees, and he squeezed us into your busy agenda. So I very much thank you for this opportunity to make this presentation. For those of you that don't know what the every 15 minutes consists of, it's basically we stage a fatality collision involving a DUI driver and obviously some killed teens in the collision, and it goes through the entire process from the collision where the kids are made up to look like they're involved in the accident, and if you can see from the brochure, they do a very good job of it. They videotape the whole process. They show the teens being wheeled into the hospital, the coroner coming in, the parents coming in and being told that their child was killed, and then they move off to the kid that's involved in the accident that caused the accident. And they go through the jail process, and they go through booking and the whole thing. We include members of the media. Mike Mangus did a spectacular piece on it. Good job, Mike. Thank you. But any of you that have been in this process or gone to one of these events, and we've had several, we've been doing this since, the Highway Patrol, have been doing this since 1995, and it's been longer than that this program's been going. But anybody that's been to this, you'd have to be heartless not to be moved by it. I've done 3 or 4 of these, and every time you sit in the auditorium when they do the conclusion of the event, you're sitting there and you're just, if you don't tear up, you know, you're the guy that couldn't cry at Old Yeller. I mean, it's amazing. I was sitting there watching the kids in the stands, and you know, here are these big tough football players. They're passing tissue around to one another. So it makes a point, it makes a statement, and these folks did a very, very good job. And I'd like to just take a moment to recognize them, and I'm going to have my sergeant, Paul Peterson, make the recognize the folks. And I have to recognize Paul. He was a big instigator in this, as well as Officer Kevin Lunty in the back.
Good morning. Sergeant Paul Peterson with California Highway Patrol. We couldn't have done this program without the help and partnership of certain individuals. And there's certain people that we absolutely could not have completed the program with. So having said that, I would like to thank a select group of people that I've invited here today, myself and the captain invited here today to recognize personally. We would like to thank the chemical people, specifically Miss Cindy Daisy. Miss Cindy Daisy, we couldn't have done this without her coordination and her efforts and her countless hours of devoted time to this program. And with that, I have a accommodation from the commander of the California Highway Patrol of the Redding area for you. Thank you, Cindy. Appreciate it.
Away it went.
I would also like to call up Mr. Walt Leibel and Mr. George Whitfield. They're from the Bernie Lions. They too spent countless hours with us on a weekly basis with meetings, fundraising, donations, and I believe in the end they raised over $3,000 in donations for our program, along with the food and monies to buy that food. So there's a letter in here for the Lions Club, thanking them for your time. And there's a certificate for, I'm sorry, George, there you go, and for Walt from the committee. Thank you very much for your time. And I would also like to call up Mr. Ray Guerrero. Mr. Ray Guerrero is the principal of Bernie High School, and we clearly couldn't have succeeded in doing this without his support of the program and allowing us into a school to make this happen. There is a letter in here with a mention of all your staff that was involved. I would like to personally thank your staff and your high school for allowing us to do this in your school. Thank you. I would like to call Miss Sarah Hartley up. We have a thing during the program, it's the night of the 16th in this case, where we have a retreat. And what that is we have what we call the living dead. And every 15 minutes, a chaplain and school personnel go into a classroom. They pull a student out of the classroom. They read an obituary to the class that has been written in honor of that student. And they're removed from the class for the rest of the day, and their cell phone is confiscated. They're not allowed to have contact with the students of the school or their family for the next 24 hours, roughly. And from that point on, we take approximately 31 kids to a retreat, where the retreat is ran by somebody and coordinated with events to keep the kids entertained and to educate the kids on the effects of DUI. Miss Sarah Hartley was the leader in our retreat, and she kept the kids entertained that whole evening and educated them. And I'd never been involved in a retreat. I've been involved in about probably half a dozen every 15-minute programs, but I've never been to the retreat, and it was quite moving. She did a spectacular job. And this is a commander's commendation from the commander of the California Highway Patrol. And lastly, I would like to call Officer Kevin Lunty. Kevin worked very closely in organizing this program, and he leaded it from the Highway Patrol standpoint to ensure that all aspects were met, that the collision scene was coordinated, that EMS personnel was on site, that everything ran as smoothly as possible during the collision event. And he too was at the retreat to help coordinate that and make sure the kids learned something from a law enforcement standpoint. So on behalf of the commander, there's a commander's commendation for you, Kevin. You did an outstanding job. Thank you very much.
I got a few. Okay. Okay. Also, we wanted to thank the Sheriff's Department. I was hoping that Sheriff Pacinko would be here so that we could make the presentation to him, but Sergeant Tyler Thompson, Reserve Deputy Nancy Carter, Detective John Meeker, and Deputy Keith Sharp were all heavily involved in this process. So, like I said, it's a lot of people are involved in it, and from all spectrums of the community, and so we have a commendation for the Sheriff's Department as well. And Paul's got a couple more.
There's a few more people I want to thank, a little more off the record than that. Bernie Fire Department, Reach Air Ambulance, CAL FIRE, Mayor's Hospital, and again, Mike Mangus from Channel 7 News. I would like to give them a personal thank you for their assistance, and the community of Bernie for their generosity in assisting us with donations and making sure this all happened.
Thank you.
I have one last commendation, and then I'll cede my time. Yeah, I'm sorry, Larry. But Sergeant Paul Peterson was headed this too, and I have a commendation for him as well. Thank you.
Supervisor Haas.
Yes, thank you very much for doing this, but remember, it's not always alcohol involved with these young people. They do not think anything can happen to them at that age. I was invited to come up there, but after what happened to me and my family 3 years ago, it's hard for me to get around something like that, and I hope you understand, because we lost a young man on our ranch, and it never leaves you, believe me. You think about it all the time. It's just horrible to have something like that to happen, and we just hope that we instill in them the idea that driving and you know, doing things like this can be dangerous, and you have to pay attention to what you're doing. And I just really commend you for doing this, and I wish we could do it in all the high schools. And I also want to thank all of those people that work Sober Grad all over our county and the North State. It's wonderful that they do this. When I was young, we didn't have that. When my kids were young, we didn't have that. Now we do, and we don't read about a lot of deaths after graduation like we used to. I think it's wonderful that people get out and donate their time to do that and keep kids safe. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
I'm glad you brought up Sober Grad, because Betty Cunningham is sitting in the audience, and this is her
An awesome thing.
20th year, and they've collected $2.5 million over that time period. So,
Wonderful.
Outstanding program.
Thank you, and I'd just like to finish it off with just a thank you to the residents from the Bernie area for coming all the way down here to our meeting to receive these presentations. We certainly appreciate taking the time to do that. We certainly applaud you for your efforts in your community. And then also to Mike, Mike Mangus, you had also another program that you put on the air here where it was, I believe, West Valley High School, where they televised, they had actually a DUI trial, I believe, and they showed to the kids the effects of not, in this case, not a crash, but what happens with the DUI and how the impact it has on your life when you get sentenced to prison or jail or something like that. So thank you all for coming and make the presentation. It's certainly well worthwhile, and hopefully have a positive impact on our community.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to our consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They may be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested person may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and consideration. At this time, I have a request to move items C7 and C10.
I'll move approval of the remainder of the consent calendar.
Second. Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Modi,
Except for-
relative to C11, C11 is approve a software agreement with ACS Firehouse consistent with my previous positions. This requires an advance payment of over $7,000, which equates to approximately 1/3 of the dollar amount, and I will be voting no on this, not because of the lack of efficacy to the proposal, but because of the advance payment concept.
Thank you, Supervisor Kehoe. So will be a unanimous approval for all the items except for C11 with the one exception from Mr. Kehoe. We now will move to item C7, which is agreement with Hill